first of all, thank you very much. Oh, you don't have to clap. Wait till the end, and then only clap if it's worth clapping. So, but thank you for the sentiment. I appreciate it. And firstly, thank you very much for waiting. I was really looking forward to coming to talk to you tonight, and then something came up that I couldn't get out of. So I'm really happy to be here now. Thank you for having me. So, as you can see, what I'm going to talk about today is 10 things to keep in mind when you're looking for your first job in entertainment design. So, by entertainment design, we mean sort of any aspect of the screen industry, really. So games, VFX, animation, depending how you term it, and we could talk about it very differently in 10 years' time, entertainment design is a broad brushstroke to speak about all of those areas in one together. So how many of you are looking for a job in entertainment design? How many of you are looking for your first job in entertainment design? How many of you finding that easy? None of you. Okay. So how many of you heard, the industry's growing really quickly. There's heaps of jobs. It's a growing industry. How many of you have heard that sort of terminology and stuff talking? And how many of you have really not found that that's equated with your job search, that you've actually found your job search a bit harder than that? Okay, there's a couple of reasons for that I wanted to touch on before I actually go through the presentation, because some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about in the presentation is stuff that you will probably already know, or that you've already been told, and it's probably just a bit of a refresher. So is there so much work in the entertainment design industry? Yes, but what's happened is the games industry in particular, but also other parts of the sector, have grown incredibly quickly over the last couple of years. So in Australia, I don't know if you've seen the recent IGO stats, but it's grown 26%, the games industry alone, between 2021 and 2022. And so you guys should be thinking, oh my goodness, happy days, so many jobs for me, right? And the screen industry, the same thing, massive growth. And all of that growth has been driven by everything we do every day. So all of the apps that we play with on our phone, all the phone games, all the games we play on our PC, the games that our parents play on their phones, because they play games too, even though they don't like to call them. That's what they're doing when they're playing Wordle or Snozzle or whatever it is they're playing, or Sheeple. So they're playing games as well. And that is increasing. People my age playing games are actually the largest target area. Thank God everyone's catching up to me. For uptake in gaming is sort of middle-aged gamers. So that all should bode well for you. But part of the problem that we're having now is that massive expansion means that there isn't actually a shortage of graduates. That massive expansion is sort of coalesced with a time where games education is maturing. So there's a lot of graduates coming out, which is terrific, really good, well-trained graduates, which is terrific. But that's not where the area of shortage is. The area of shortage is in mid-career and above. So the people who can basically manage those graduates, that's where the big shortage is. So if you think about companies that you've worked in, and some of you, obviously young, you haven't worked in big corporations, most of the people in big corporations aren't juniors. Most of them are sort of mid-career people with sort of 3 to 5, maybe 10 years experience doing most of the work, and then a few sort of senior people above that. So that's where the shortage is. There's not necessarily a shortage of really amazing graduates, but don't be disheartened by that, because everyone's a graduate once. Everybody is in your position once. And because there is a shortage across the sector, if you can get yourself in, if you can actually get yourself into your first company and stay there for a good couple of years, and I would suggest that you try and do that. There can be a tendency to sort of job hop and hop around when you're really young, going, I could just get a great job over there, and what about this? And this company is the one I've always really wanted to work in. There is nothing like a really good stability on your CV. So if you do manage to snare that great job, hang on to it for a good couple of years. So that's sort of what's going on in the sector at the moment. And that's why it might feel hard for you to get your first job, even though the industry is growing at the rate of Topsy, which it is. It's still going to be hard to get your foot in the door. You're still going to have to prove yourself. But once you've done that, then the sky's the limit. There's a huge amount of opportunity out there, particularly for particular skill sets and sectors, and I could talk about that later too if you want me to. So I'm going to go through my 10 things to keep in mind when you're looking for your first job in entertainment design. It's actually 11, and I was speaking to a client today and she's had another one, so I'm going to make it 12. So feel free to jump in. I can just keep talking. So feel free to interrupt at any point and ask me a question, and I'm really happy to answer as best I can. So the first thing you should do is make sure you understand how to use PowerPoint when you are using it. Hang on a second. Come on, PowerPoint. Aha, okay. Never stop. First one, and like some of this stuff again, you probably will have heard, but again, some of these things are just good to reiterate. So the first one is never stop building your portfolio. It's the key to your future. So a lot of the time when I see graduates, particularly graduates who have been out for a year or so, and they take me through their folio, and they go, oh, it's been really hard to get work. And I'm going, okay, well, everything that I've seen on your reel and in your folio is stuff that you did while you were at AIE or, insert university course here. What have you been doing in the years since you graduated? And they said, well, I've been looking for a job. I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to look for a job, pretty much all of your employers are going to want to see evidence of the fact that you keep learning post your study. So you can't just rely on the reel that you've got when you graduate. I know that sounds painful. It's like, oh God, I've spent all this time. I've just put my graduation piece together. Like university and college graduation pieces look like graduation pieces. So you can sort of see people's reels and folios and go, oh, okay, yep, that's AIE and that's that project. Or, that's SAE and that's that project. And so you can sort of after a while start to pick. But the really, really good graduates, the ones that go on to get jobs, keep pushing it. They grab the things that they really love and they keep working on those things. Like if you're a modeler and you want to be a hard surface modeler, just keep going. The idea behind learning to be a hard surface modeler is learning those skills. So the idea behind graduating is that you've stopped learning the how, but you need to keep going. Like keep finding personal projects. Go model a rubbish bin. Go model an army tank. And actually model a rubbish bin because more people need rubbish bins than army tanks. So just keep going, keep working. And so really, really good graduate folios within 6 to 12 months don't have any of your graduate work in them anymore. Just keep going. I know it feels hard, but in the end, it will be worth it. All right. Oh, Kirsty, that's okay. What do you mean by the frequency? Oh, how much stuff you want in there? Yeah. Yeah. There's no real hard and fast rule to that. It really depends. Like in the end, obviously, the quality of your folio is what's going to matter. So ideally, the best way to do it would be to make something. So let's say we're talking about modeling again. Make something, have a look and see how you feel it fits with the rest of your portfolio. Do you think it's better? And if it is, put it in. But you should also then try and take the worst bit out. So that's sort of how you build your folio. So put something in and go, now I need to take out a bit, the thing that I think is the worst. And if the thing that you're putting in isn't good enough to have you take something out, then maybe you don't put that in. So it is a very, very subjective process, but it also allows you to really look at your own work objectively. So is this rubbish bin better than that rifle over there? Why? Have I listened to the feedback that I've been given on that rifle and why, now I can make the rubbish bin or whatever. So you're continuing with that sort of iterative process and making sure that you build your folio. Also, you can have more than one folio. Actually, I think that might be another slide, so I'll wait to that. But so never stop building. So put in, take out, put in, take out. And what you might also end up with is so many pieces, if you're hardworking enough, that you can actually put folios together for particular jobs. And that really helps you maximize your chances as well. All right, let me see if I can get, Okay, so keep your resume and folio clear and updated. So make sure that your resume make sure there are no spelling mistakes, make sure it's clear, make sure that everything in it is easily readable. There are lots of really great tutorials on how you should structure your resume. I think Jennifer from Mighty Kingdom posted a really good one, I think about 6 months ago, maybe less, on LinkedIn. I don't know if any of you saw that. I might try and repost it, but it was really good. It's about, this is what you should put in your CV, this is what you should put in your folio. But make sure you can keep them clear and updated. Okay, here's the important one. You can have more than one resume and more than one folio. And in fact, you probably should. Because I'm going to use modeling again just because it's a convenient one. But imagine that you love modeling and you also love texture. You also love texture painting. So there might be a situation where you want to really focus on your modeling and highlight that, like maybe you're going for a modeling job, or maybe you're going for a job that is really more texture. So you can have a texture folio, you can have a modeling folio or reel, you can move those things around, and you can change your resume to suit. You can do that, and it's probably better if you do that. You can have another one which focuses on animation. Like I know a lot of game people are generalists. Like you do all of those things, in which case put everything back in again, to show that you're a generalist. So the most important thing is understanding what it is the person wants to see. It's not about you, it's about them. What do they want to see? And then making sure you put what they want to see in your folio and in your resume. So it's not set. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, your reel or resume or folio. Take it out, put it in, build stuff. Have a look at the brief that the person's hiring for. Go, does my folio fit that brief? Does my reel fit that brief? If not, what can I do about it? What other ammunition, what other pieces of work do I have that I can put in? And that, again, goes back to that first thing about continuing to build. Okay. I put this together like a few months ago and I forgot what I put in. Don't rely only on the online world. And this sort of speaks to getting jobs. And I put this in because I've got an 18-year-old son, and it's taken him 2 years to get a job. And I'm talking like a job in a burger joint. And this is despite his mum being a recruitment consultant, and probably because his mum's a recruitment consultant. Because I keep saying, just take your CV, and he's going, Mum, that's not how you do it. I'm going, it is. He goes, it isn't. You don't know. And I'm going, I do know. This is my job. He goes, yeah, but you don't recruit those kinds of people. Anyway, so people just don't listen to their mothers, and that's fine. But ultimately, if a job is advertised online, if you apply online, and that's the only way you apply, you are minimizing your chances of getting that job. And the reason is because I've been on the other side. So you've got a role, it's a junior role, you advertise it because you have to. You advertise it on Seek, you advertise it on LinkedIn, you advertise it wherever, and you get a whole pile of stuff, a whole pile of resumes. And you're going, oh God, I've got such a limited time to fill this. I don't know, where do I even start? And a really good example I give of this, there's a woman who is now, I think, VFX production manager at Netflix. And she got her first job when I was working at Rising Sun, and we were looking for someone to help us in the recruitment team. And we put an ad on Seek, and because it was Rising Sun, I reckon we got nearly 500 applicants. We wanted to keep it really broad. And we got people from everywhere. But this woman was the only person who called to follow up. Of 500 people, she was the only person who rang and said, did you get my resume? And it's like, right, we want to interview her. She was the only person. And I think she also applied about 4 times and rang twice when we didn't call her back. It's like, well, she obviously has the proactivity that we need. And that proactivity and sense of personal responsibility and taking ownership for her own future are traits that have taken her career a long way and will continue to. I fully expect to see that she's going to be CEO of something one day. And actually, that's the most wonderful part of my job, is seeing those journeys and knowing that I had a hand in helping those people start their careers. It's a wonderful thing. I absolutely love it. So don't rely only on the online world. Research the job, work out where it is. Do you know somebody who works at that place? What's the culture like? Can they put you in touch with somebody? Have you applied online? Call to follow up. Don't be afraid of the phone. I know people are afraid of the phone these days. Call, leave a message. If no one gets back to you, you know what? At least they heard your name. So don't be afraid to do it. I know it is scary. I've just been through that with my son. He still doesn't like it. He did get a job online after 2 years and ignored everything I said and said, see, Mum, I was right. I'm like, it took you 2 years. Anyway. So don't rely only on the online world. Recruiters live in LinkedIn, particularly in the entertainment design sector. Very much VFX animation, games as well. There are other places that they live in games, but LinkedIn is pretty much where you need to be if you want to make sure that you're visible. So particularly as your career, matures, and as you get more senior, you'll find that there is that demand for your skill that you're not finding at a junior level, and you will possibly get headhunted. That's huge amount of what I do is connecting with people on LinkedIn and going, hi, I need an FX supervisor, I need a lighting artist. And so if you have a really good profile on LinkedIn, you make sure you're active, you make sure that you update your work, you can post it on LinkedIn. That's a really good way of making sure that people see you. Artists may not live on LinkedIn, gaming people may not live in, but recruiters do. So make sure that you are where the recruiters are. Sometimes they'll go out into other places, but like my LinkedIn is always on. So that's a good place for you to make sure that you are getting there. Stop and ask me questions, please, at any time. Okay, here's another one. Recruiters may not have time to give you feedback, and this is not personal. We are not nasty wildebeests designed, with a personal fetish to sort of cut down your self-confidence. That's absolutely not what we set out to do. And it's a horrible part of our job that we don't often get the time to respond and give feedback in the way that most of us really truly want to. And a lot of that is just around the sheer volume of what we have to deal with. So just to give an example, I was speaking to a recruiter recently who works at a big animation company in Sydney. They have 500 people. She is the only recruiter. They're recruiting 35 staff. I do not know how she does that on her own. I just don't know how she sleeps. But I do know that she just doesn't have time to give anybody feedback. And I do know, because she's a lovely person, that she would probably desperately want to if she could. So don't ever take that personally. It is about time. It is not about you. It is never about you. And that's really important to understand. So if you do get feedback from a recruiter, or in fact from anybody in the industry, make sure that you listen, because they see lots and lots and lots of work. And if they've got time to give you feedback on your work, that must mean that either they're not that busy that day, or they actually really like your work, they value your work, and they see you as somebody sort of worth nurturing. So it's I'm not putting my hand up and saying, oh, it's so hard, but sometimes it can be really hard to get back to everybody. Yes. Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question, because it is a different platform to Instagram. So yeah, Instagram, ArtStation, all of that sort of stuff, you can probably update relatively regularly. So what I would suggest with something like LinkedIn is wait until you've got a really good folio of work, or a reel of work, depending on what medium you work in, whether it's sort of live action or still, and put the entire update. So rather than just updating a piece, you might go, hey, look, I've completely updated my reel. It's completely different to how it was 6 months ago, and I'm updating that. So I would leave LinkedIn for like really major updates. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, or close to finished. Because and what you can then do is ask for feedback on LinkedIn. A lot of people do that too. But yeah, definitely I would leave. LinkedIn is sort of not, super senior people, like, I don't know, senior people who've been around for a long time can probably put a work in progress up there and ask for feedback, and they'll get someone saying, oh, you should have coded it this way and I don't like this there. But for junior people, I would definitely suggest putting up your best and finished pieces. Yeah. And so basically maybe using other platforms like Rookies or ArtStation or Instagram, use those as your feedback, your sort of work in progress, and use LinkedIn once you've got something really ready to go. But it's a really great question, actually, because you do sort of use it slightly differently to other social medias. It's not as casual, it's more business focused. So yeah, definitely great question. Thank you. Don't be afraid to take the initiative. So the example of the person who's now a VFX production manager at Netflix, she absolutely took the initiative and she stayed in touch. She knew that she wanted the job and she did absolutely everything she could to get it. The flip side of that is like, don't call 5 times a day. And people often say, okay, what's the difference between taking the initiative and staying in touch and being annoying? And that's actually a really hard one. So if, for example, you've approached someone, you've applied and you haven't heard back, I think it's pretty reasonable to sort of get back within the week going, hey, I applied and I haven't heard back. And a lot of people go, oh, okay, sure, I'll get back to you. If you've had an interview and you haven't heard back, I would definitely chase it up within the week. I always say to anyone, if you've approached me or if you've sent something to me or sent me a message and I haven't got back to you, feel free to chase me up. Please do it, because I get really busy. At the moment, there's just me in the business and I find it really hard to stay on top of all the communications. So reach out to me by LinkedIn, send me a message. I promise you I will always get back to you. It might take me a couple of days, but I always will. So don't be afraid to sort of take the initiative and stay in touch. If you've sent some work to someone proactively and there's no job, I'd stay in touch every couple of months, and try and make sure that you've got a reason to stay in touch, like a folio update or something new to share with them. Don't be afraid to be yourself. And yes, you are okay. They definitely would want to hire someone like you. And I know that when you have your first job, it's like, oh, they didn't get back to me. Maybe it's me. I didn't get the job. Maybe it's me. It's not you. It is not you. You're a really nice person. Like, trust me, it is. A lot of the time it's about your work and how that work is going to fit in with what they need. So basically, when you apply for a job, you're applying to a business and they want a business outcome from you. So if they don't think that you are ready to deliver that business outcome right now, they are probably just going to wait for a little while until you are. So if you sort of start to get yourself into a mindset of like, okay, what does this company need from me? What does this team need from me? It's going to make you more employable. And sort of remove the you-ness from it. I know this sounds awful, but remove the you-ness and go, okay, what is my skill set? What is the business outcome this company needs from hiring me? How can I make my skill set fit that? And then once you get into that company, just work really hard, listen, be nice, and that's really all you need to do. I'll make it sound really simple. I'm sorry. It can be harder than that, but fundamentally that's what it is. Don't give up. It's your career and it's a marathon, not a sprint. So if you really believe that this is what you want to do, keep going. Work in a burger joint. If you apply online for 2 years, you might get a job in a burger joint. I promise you that. So when there's another guy actually who messaged me today, again, who I work with at Rising Sun, who started off as a junior there. I think he's now a VFX supervisor at ILM in Vancouver. I boast about people I hired because I'm so that that's what makes me happy. It makes me happy to see those people. He did TAFE back before there was AIE, and it took him 2.5 years to get his first job. And he's incredibly talented. There just weren't the opportunities then that there are now. But it just took him 2.5 years to get his first break. And he kept going. He kept working in restaurants. He kept updating his CV, updating his reel. He kept in touch with us. And that's just what it took. But, he found other ways of supporting himself while he did that. He believed in himself. He kept iterating. He kept working. And he's finally, I think, probably now happy to be where he is. And getting your first job isn't the only hard thing you're going to have to do in your career. Like, work is hard. Working for people is also hard. Like, life is hard. Getting your first job is probably one of the first really, really hard things that you'll do. But you'll also learn skills in the process that you can use elsewhere. This is number 11, and I've touched on it before. But hiring a junior is a risk and a commitment on behalf of any employer. So if you have never had a job before in the industry and someone hires you, that's a huge break for you, but it's also kind of a scary risk for them because they haven't got anybody else they can talk to and go, how was this person? How did this person fit into your team? Did this person work okay? Is it okay? So it's a big risk. So when you do get your first job, and you will, understand that they're taking a chance on you and work really, really hard to show them that they've made the right choice and that they've made the right choice in you and your skills and bringing you into their team. Because a lot of the companies that hire game designers and programmers, are small businesses and small companies, particularly here in South Australia. They don't necessarily all have a lot of money, and you've all been in these, you've seen a lot of these companies. It can be hard for them. So I understand it's hard getting your first job, but it's also a risk for them too. So there's two sides to it. Yeah.
When an employer takes on a junior, is it just about the skill for about the junior's ability to create artwork, or there's also other skills, working in a team?
Yeah, all of those things. I think particularly in this sector, those sorts of, I guess, teamwork and people and business skills are things that can be learned at different times for different people. I mean, I don't know how many of you have been through AIE. Have most of you been through AIE? No, a couple of you, or CDW? So you've probably sort of had lectures and talked to people about those sorts of work skills. But actually, it's something that I don't actually think is taught enough. It's actually really important. Learning to take feedback and understanding that if somebody, criticizes your model of a rubbish bin, they're not criticizing you. They're just saying, hey, look, it needs to be a bit more this and it needs to be a bit more that. And that might be hard to hear because you've just spent, 2.5 months working on your model of a rubbish bin. But being able to take that feedback, iterate it and make it better is a really, really huge part of what's going to be your success as an artist. Because you're basically ultimately working on a team project, and that team project is actually the vision of somebody else, usually, unless you're working for yourself. So you're helping somebody else realize their vision. So being able to take that brief and feedback on that brief is going to be really, really important. So make sure that when you first get your first job, you're not surprised when someone goes, oh, do this, do that, change this, I'm not sure about this. Some managers are great at sharing that feedback. Some managers aren't. And that's just an unfortunate fact of life sometimes. But know that however they deliver that feedback, if you can take it and iterate until you get what they want, then that's what the business largely wants from you. I don't know, James, you run a team, so is that sort of right? Yeah, pretty much. So, and if you can prove that you can do that, and you can do that for any employer, and you can turn up to work every day with a smile, attitude is everything, then you will succeed in your first job, and they will love you, and they'll extend you. So that's another really important thing. That is nearly the end. The other thing I have to say today after talking to someone in the industry is, if you have an interview, don't swear. That's the only other thing. That's from the person I spoke to today. Okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Yes. It's really hard because that will come down to the personal preference of the employer. Some of them will ask for your folio/reel in various formats. So they'll just say put a link in. And if they just say put a link in, don't worry about a PDF because they just want a link. Sometimes they'll ask you to upload your resume and any sort of folio PDF that you might have. I prefer a link just because it's easier for me to store a link, because I don't have to store a link. And I have to store lots of people's work. So that's what I prefer. But usually they will tell you what they prefer. So yeah, again, to be fully prepared, you could probably have both. You could have something on a PDF, or you could have, a link to your work. If you have something online, it's probably just as easy to edit, really. It doesn't really matter. So like also, you sort of need to have something that's going to be easy for you to work with, but I guess they're both kind of the same, really. Yeah. Yes. Do you have a good rigging folio? then don't. So if you've got the work, sure. Like if you've got a great rigging folio or reel or whatever, and you think you'll get hired as a rigger, sure. But ultimately, people do that. I mean, people when I was at Rising Sun did that. It's like, they wanted to be in VFX, but they took a job in, I don't know, as a runner or in layout. So it's up to you. A lot of people in the industry take what I'd call sort of support roles. So they might take a job as a runner or someone on the render farm or something like that in bigger places just because they want to get in. Sometimes people take jobs as sort of like tutors in some of the bigger companies that run their own internal training so they can get a foot in the door. The girl I was talking to you about before, she didn't want to work in recruitment, she wanted to be in production, but she took the job to get the foot in the door. So the answer is yes, but from a creative point of view, you'd need the folio to get that job as well. And then once you're in, you can sort of move around. Yeah. Yes. To see if that's happening yet. I'm kind of curious to see if that's happening yet too. It sort of is. Like I've got a couple of clients in Sydney which have divisions that do that sort of crossover virtual production Unreal stuff. It is definitely starting to happen. In the bigger, more traditional visual effects houses, it isn't. It's still very traditional visual effects pipeline. I think that will change. Has it changed yet? A bit in some places, but not in all places. That's what I'm seeing anyway. That's only what I'm seeing. Yeah. Yep. That is a really, really good question. How do you answer that one? I don't know. It depends what you want to do with your career. So basically, if you're recruiting for a big company, then they're going to want to see that big company background. And getting a job in one of those bigger companies will open more doors for you and you would probably still be able to go back and work in one of those little indies later on if you wanted to. But if you have a really good reel or a really good folio with great work on it, that will stand you in good stead no matter where you've worked. But because recruiters are time poor, that is true. We get through and go, where they work? Oh, cool. Yep. Where have they worked? It doesn't mean you won't see that. You won't look at that resume, but it might go further down the pile if you are busy. So it's a really good question, actually. Yes. Pool is very low at the moment. Yes. Yes. So are you finding you're getting lots of people reach out to you? Yeah. So what they would be doing is looking at you, looking at your skill set, looking at where you're working, thinking, okay, there's a skill set that I'm looking for right now. They've got the right kind of background. I'll just reach out and see if they're interested. So the market is, I've never seen a market like it. The market is so tight at mid-career and above that some of the bigger companies, some of the big recruitment companies, not the big recruitment companies, sorry, some of the big games companies and the big VFX companies have huge teams internally, and that is all they do. They sit there and they go through LinkedIn and they reach out to people. It's something that I haven't seen to this degree before. So hopefully once we get this cohort coming through and moving up into sort of mid to senior career, that will help a little bit. Hopefully for us, once we get the borders open properly again, that will help a little bit too, because I don't think that's helping. So yeah, there are a number of I guess shortages at mid-career and above, which are leading to that basically outreach behavior. Yep, absolutely. Yes. I always say yes. I think your chances of getting one are not great, but the process of applying for one is always healthy, because it makes you really have a look at your work and go through that process again and go through, okay, is my folio good enough or real good enough for this job? Is my resume good enough? Going through the process of applying for that role means that you put rigor and thought into your own work and folio. So I would always say yes. And in this market, if your reel and folio is good enough, you just never know. A lot of the time with juniors, it's not about work quality. It's actually about maturity and companies needing to feel that they have people on board who have the maturity and experience to sort of deliver. So if you can get a foot in your door and prove that you've got that, then sky's the limit. So yeah, always apply. They may not get back to you, but always apply. Yes. I don't think so. Yeah, I think in Adelaide there's less people that do 2D, but there is a lot of 2D in Sydney. There's a lot of 2D in Brisbane. There's certainly, like, the medium isn't disappearing. What would you say? Yeah. Yeah, there's just not a lot in Adelaide. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah. 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 I don't think so. No. And I think even 3D pipelines need 2D to a certain degree as well. So yeah, no, I don't think so. It's not something we've ever really done hugely in Adelaide to a big sort of commercial degree, but certainly in other parts of Australia, then yeah, there's a lot of it, I think. Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole other part of the industry. That's sort of advertising, motion graphics, After Effectsy kind of work. That sort of never goes away. Like, the advertising part of the market is still there. It's changed, but that work is there. Most of the people who do that kind of work aren't necessarily the people who do games and film, but again, that's starting to converge a little bit. I'm sort of watching that with interest as well. I think you just need to be yourself, because that's who they're hiring. They're not hiring a pair of pants. They're hiring you. So, be yourself. My only personal bugbear is people who have like Zoom and online meetings in their bedrooms. And you can see like all the bedroom furniture. Like, that just sort of freaks me out a bit. That's my own personal bugbear. Like, I don't want to see your bedroom. Put a screen up behind you, or like go and sit on the kitchen table or something. But then again, if I saw a really great candidate and we had an interview and I could see all of that and they were really great, would I care? No. It just makes me feel slightly uncomfortable because it just does. So it's something to think about. Yes. So actually at the interview, that's a really good technique. Well done. That is an excellent idea. Round of applause for this young man. That is the best way to get feedback. It's like, if you get an interview, ask for it in the interview. I'm going to add that to my slide. No, I think that's actually, no one ever has. I think that's a great idea. Excellent. Well done. Yeah, I think that's really good. But as a recruiter, I'm a middle person, so we can give you feedback. So that's actually a good thing, because that means that you then spend an extra 5 minutes at the end of interview giving feedback. So you can ask, and yeah, if they can't, then I guess they'll just say no. Yeah, but that's a really good idea. Anyone else got any questions? No. Okay. Thank you very much for your time.